Hey, Michael, my camera's not working right, so you're just going to hear me.
Okay, not a problem. I think that's why most people were attending, Scott, was to see it, man. But hey,
Yeah, I'll have to send my picture later.
okay. We'll get started here soon, everyone. Wait for more attendees to get in here.
Joe, you guys get any of the snow from yesterday?
No, not really.
Yeah.
No, we were pretty fortunate.
We got we got a pretty good inch here in the morning, and then in the afternoon it was all gone.
Yeah, same here. We got we saw it was coming through Pensy, and just all of a sudden, whatever was going to be a dusting turned into a state. It started snowing statewide. We're like, all right, that's December, right?
There you go.
Yeah, a little bit of upslope snow in far western Maryland for us, but that's just typical west of the Continental Divide. But no, it was pretty non-eventful for us.
Manageable stuff.
All right, looks like the attendees are starting to level off here, so I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the session Enhancements and Operations. I'm Michael Pack, and I'm with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, and I'm the Manager of Incident Management and Traffic Operations. So this session is really set up as a panel discussion. As you can see, we'll be answering questions related to TSMO, to Transportation System Management and Operations, covering several functional areas throughout the session, including traveler information, ITS systems and devices, traffic operations center, traffic management center operations, incident management, and connected and autonomous vehicles. I did include the questions on a slide deck that I'll start here soon, because I know in the virtual world there's a little bit more ability to session hop. So when those do join our session at any time, they can actually see the question that our panelists are currently discussing. Really, and also when thinking of who to include in this session, I really kind of wanted to take advantage of this virtual world and reach out to some of the folks from other states that I had the pleasure of working with over the years. I know that they've worked on a lot of good projects, have a lot of experience, and no shame in this, but I've stole some of their ideas that they shared with me and worked well, and hopefully vice versa. So that's kind of how we work with as a community. So I'm going to go ahead and start this presentation here and introduce the panelists. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yep, sure do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So for full bios, please reference the info desk. But I will introduce the panelists here real quick. The first one is Colin Castle, professional engineer. He is the ITS program manager from Michigan DOT. Joey Segal is the deputy administrator, chief engineer for operations Hanover with Maryland DOT, State Highway Administration. Sal Cohen is the Senior Director of Transportation Mobility with New Jersey DOT. And Scott Cowherd is the State Traveler Information Program Manager, Virginia DOT Operations Division. Scott's camera is not working, so you'll be able to hear him though throughout the presentation. So we'll go ahead and jump right into this here. So for the panelists, and I have you guys in order, kind of like we talked about when we planned for this session. So the first question is, what are some challenges or changes you've seen in how traffic operations centers operate, and what changes do you see over the next 5 to 10 years? Joey?
Hey, Mike, excuse me. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. And being a part of this panel, with my colleagues here, that's a really good question. Had you asked me that question, but pre-March and pre-COVID, I would have talked more about our workforce shifting and consultant support increasing and adding a little more traffic engineering as we started seeing in our TOCs. But, we really started looking at social distancing and started looking at making sure we've been keeping our TOCs and our statewide operations centers and our traffic management centers safer each and every day. I'm sure Sal and Colin and Scott can certainly agree with me there. But one of the things that we're going to be seeing in the next 5 to 10 years, I know in Maryland, are proactive versus reactive approaches. Looking at predictive analytics, those are really moving into true system roadway network management of the system versus strictly just traditional incident management. The way we provide information is also going to change. The public no longer sees the DOT as a primary provider for traffic information or routing as we shift towards true management of the system. Sharing data to the private sector may serve to act as a main motorist information conduit rather than directly from a DOT. As we start to see, we're hearing, I'm sure some of my other colleagues are going to say DMSs or even possibly traveler info websites will become even less relevant or useful, as well as on the spot telephone applications. And as CAV tech becomes more commonplace, we're starting to take what you've been a trendsetter in PennDOT and Pennsylvania Turnpike with iPause alerting. We talked about taking and stealing good ideas, R&D, rip off and duplicate. We're doing that, and we're trying to put that in place down here in Maryland as well too, and the ability to do some of those things. A few of the things that we're doing in Maryland. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, Sal.
So from the rip off and duplicate perspective, we have the help program as well. The folks who've helped set it up, but we had an unfortunate incident, major winter storm that forced us to really look at how we are able to communicate with those people who are stuck on our roads. It's one of those, as God is my witness, this shall never happen again moments, and that's where technology can step in. How we're seeing changes, Joey's hitting the nail right on the head. Yes, we do have to focus on some of the more immediate needs. The social distancing, we've broken our teams up into pods in our various communication centers where we won't lose an entire operation because of any kind of an infection, where we've separated them into various pods, and the two shall never mix sort of a mentality. But it really is all about the data, and that's some of the major changes that we've seen and that we're going to continue to see. So, for those of us that have been in this business for a long time, it was, here's the joystick, here's the zoom in and zoom out button, and those are your 400 cameras that you got to look at over the next 8 hours. It's mind numbing. How many people can watch 500 cameras over the course of their day? It's really going to be about prediction. And while we don't have that right now here at New Jersey DOT, I'll make a quick comment. I was just at a panel with ITS New York in their annual meeting. A gentleman by the name of Andrew Beal from the Ontario Ministry of Transportation. And he said that they put something together. It was actually really cool. They put something together using AIMSOM Live, so that they're going to have travel predictions at 15, 30, and 60 minutes of what that freeway is going to look like. So those are the kinds of things that, that prediction, that what's going to happen next based on historical data. There are a ton of variables in there, but I'm sure a lot of that's going to get fleshed out as these systems get more and more mature.
Yeah, thank you, Sal. Scott, you're up next.
Yeah, a lot of of what I'm hearing is very similar to what we're talking about. I mean, obviously, this whole virus has created a lot of change. One of the things that we use a lot of is our standard operating procedures in our TOC, and we've made small changes to those. I guess the big changes, is that we just went to a new ATMS, and that has helped a lot because we've now got the state all on one level. We have 5 regional offices, and we've been kind of had 3 different types of softwares, if you will, to provide the communication within VDOT and to the public. So that's been a big change, and it's been a great change over the past year. As the others have said, a lot of change has taken place with adaptability and flexibility. Our TOCs have had to become incredibly flexible because of the impacts to the virus, which has created a dramatic change in the staffing at all times. So that we've had to advance our planning and preparedness for remote operations, and which is something we've never had to do before. All of our staff is now prepared to work remotely, so that's great, in some sort of capacity, utilizing their newly available hardware and system accessibility to the ATMS. I would say over the next 5 to 10 years, we're hoping to continue to grow the technology and make the job, the operators easier. We're always looking at that, allowing us to do more with less. We hope to continue improving the incident detection and the management, via the ATMS, because that's a new enhancement that we have. And we're still emphasizing the operator growth, across the state.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Colin?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say similar thoughts to, what everyone stated already. I mean, obviously with COVID, we went to, full remote operations for a couple of our TOCs, which was, quite an interesting transition, but we were able to do it effectively because we had, kind of resilient, applications and infrastructure. So I think that's been definitely a learning experience over the past 9 months. One of the other things I think is we're seeing a lot more automation in our operations right now. The day of, for example, looking out the window or looking at a camera and seeing what's happening from a weather perspective, and then being able to effectively message for that. We've started to do things like automating road weather management messaging. We're doing a number of things, automating all of our travel time segments throughout the entire state, automating incident detection through using, crowdsourced applications like, Waze, et cetera. So I think it's about adding more tools in the toolbox of the operators to allow for them to do their job, which is manage incidents, and then let the system do some of the more mundane or monotonous tasks like messaging for the motorists about certain things that are occurring. So that's what I see.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. The second question here: how have technologies impacted incident management, such as scene safety, incident response through clearance, reconstruction, et cetera? And for this one, we'll start with Sal.
Sure. Mike, I gotta, these kinds of conferences, they're great. I'll be honest with you, I shot Scott a note. I'm like, hey man, what ATMS are you using? So as to not kind of drag this away. We're getting close to that kind of an effort. But yeah, I'm going to throw a plug to Danny Vartan and his folks at Beacon for Life. We use their LED warning lights on all of our incident management response team trucks. Flares are good, but flares burn out. You got to go out, you got to replace them. Using some of that technology to lay out cone lines for advanced warning is great. And even if it's a small technology for scene safety, you never know what's going to be able to do that. We started using, we had a federal grant. We used an accelerated innovation deployment grant from FHWA to work on, just like what Colin's talking about, the Weather Savvy Roads program for real connectivity to weather information and traveler services. So we actually now, with the storm we were just talking about, we've got about 20 trucks with mobile ARWIS devices and dash cameras. And so we were watching the snow come down in places where we've never had cameras before, where we've never had ARWIS sensors deployed out in the state before. We had a vehicle overturned tractor trailer on one of our interstate ramps. And, within minutes, I had a camera view and I saw the scene safety and, we're communicating about where we can set up detours. Where's our best approach? That technology we didn't have before. I know other places use it where we do have cameras on some of our trucks, but like the camera picture and the incident management scene, plus all of the weather devices on that truck gave us such a perspective. Like if we're closing that ramp, that ramp temperature is below 30 and it's still continuing to fall. Somebody get a spreader out on standby. We'll just keep them here until we reopen this ramp. So it's that kind of stuff that really gives you, it gives me the cool traffic nerdy stuff. I like that.
We know you're not a nerd though, Sal. Maybe at heart, but definitely not. Scott?
Yeah, we're always looking at the newer technologies to continue to aid in the in the scene safety and the quick clearance, obviously, because that's a big issue that we have. I mean, for anybody that drives 95 or 81 in the state, somebody was asking me the other day, so what's the latency in your information coming over to the 511? And I said, 3 minutes. And they're like, oh, well, 10 probably wouldn't be that bad. I go, 10 minutes on I-95? You've gone from a backup from 1 mile to 5 miles in that amount of time. I said, we just can't imagine that. So anyway, newer technologies. Right now, I'm working on some new technology that being able to provide more real-time information. We have a duty officer, incident command group throughout the state in each region. When they get to the incident, we really need to know what's going on. The groundwork, what's taking place. And so having somebody there, being able to provide information to all of the folks within the state and letting them know, we're so used to calling them. We're looking on how we can make that more adaptable in real time. So that's something coming out. We're also looking at evaluating the smart cones because we want to provide information out to the travelers and let them know there's an active work zone, right? When it comes down to that sort of thing. But we're always looking for new ideas and evaluating performance measurements on quick clearance and the ideas of things that can take place. We really do rely on a lot of our analytics in order to try to make the next move.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Colin?
Yeah, I would support what the others have said. I think, in Michigan, one of the things that we've noted is being able to use kind of data and more crowdsourced type of information to be able to more quickly and positively identify incidents that are occurring, particularly in areas where we don't have, a lot of ITS infrastructure to allow for that to occur. So, in Michigan, you have kind of a couple of major metropolitan areas, Grand Rapids and Detroit, where we have, a lot of ITS infrastructure, very easy to identify what's going on. But our statewide TOC, I mean, you're covering lots and lots of miles, rural, locations where we're never going to deploy any ITS infrastructure. And so being able to creatively use, the tools in the toolbox to be able to identify where things are occurring and dispatching folks properly is one of the things that has been really kind of exciting over the past couple of years. There's one other thing I was going to mention. Oh, and the other thing is I think, situational awareness at the incident itself, our freeway courtesy patrols, have much more technology on them now to be able to really kind of give us an understanding of what the current situation, what resources they need, et cetera. So.
Very good. Thanks, Colin. Joey?
Yeah, thanks. To build off exactly the same theme that we're seeing in the mature emergency safety service patrol type programs we've done with the CHAR program here in Maryland, we had our ITS maintenance division take our dash cam and we took a CCTV pole cam, the Sidewinder cameras, and we mounted one of them on a chart vehicle. And we built our own design standard that allows pan tilt zoom. So now we're not only doing mobile RWIS, but we're able to pan tilt zoom on the chart vehicle, because one of the things we found was it was good to be able to see the incident, but if the chart vehicle was at the scene providing traffic control at the back of the incident where it should be, we were sometimes getting blocked images. Seeing an image was worth a million words, but we couldn't see clearly. Now we're able to turn around and see upstream, or we're able to see the opposing direction. That's been really cool. We've done some pilots as well with iCone and Haas Alert. I heard Scott, I heard Colin, I've heard Sal mention getting motorist information out there and then getting that out there so that we can improve safety of our first responders and our DOT workers out on the front lines. And another cool thing we tried was making a hybrid hideaway stinger. So half of our chart patrol vehicle are class 4 F450 tow trucks, and the other half are like box custom response vehicles. So one of the things we ended up doing was we tried this new design standard where we put a stinger like a repossession tower would have in their private tow company. We took a utility vehicle on like an F350, F450 with a utility body and put a stinger up under it and like a tow truck. And we've been utilizing and piloting those, and they're working really handy, and they're about half the cost of a tow truck. So we're starting to utilize some of those in the, it's not high technology, it's low tech, but we're utilizing a hybrid method towards some of the new equipment that we're using out there. So just wanted to share that I'm getting good feedback from the field.
Yeah, I'll definitely be reaching out for that one too, Joey. Thank you. Next question here is, with the proliferation of navigation apps, what changes have you seen with agency provided 511, and what changes might you see over the next 5 to 10 years? We'll start with Scott with this one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we've got a lot of change that we've done so far that has really worked. I mean, I'm not sure whether you other states are working. You have the DDMS sign, the directional sign, where it shows the point to point to two different locations, well, to the same location, but using different roadways to get there. You know, we're up to 19 in the state, and those things have really done well for us. We have, you know, we continue to grow on that, but we use a lot of, you know, for the ICM side, we have a number of projects around the state. We have a regional multimodal program called RM3P that is up in our Northern Virginia area, you know, and basically what it's looking for is strategies that we are available for I-95, I-66, the Dulles Toll Road corridor, and so forth. But we're focused on 5 program areas, you know, data exchange platform, an all-based decision support system, all-based parking management, a dynamic incentivized system, a mobile analytic planner. So it's a big project. Additional information about that can be found. We've actually got a site for that. But ITS device expansion is planned. VDOT has developed a quarter plan program for the I-81 side. We've got one for I-64. We've got one for I-95. And so there's a lot of information that we have provided in there about what ITS devices we want to try to provide out to those. You know, as all the states, as money is available, we'll move forward. There's a number of corridor studies identifying, you know, those priority locations where we need to put cameras and message signs, safety service patrol, and really increase the towing program. So we're looking at a lot. Other strategies are variable speed limits, the ramp metering systems, advanced work zone technologies, and the like.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. On to Colin.
Yeah, so I mean, as it relates particularly to 511, you know, MDOT, we never moved forward with any type of, you know, telephone-based system. We always had, you know, the web-based type of traveler information system. And then for a period of time, we had, you know, iPhone, Android type of applications. But, you know, we found that people weren't going to our applications or weren't downloading our apps, and the traffic to our website was slightly limited. And the way that people receive information now, you know, is through, you know, other turn-by-turn navigation type systems, whether it be Waze or, you know, Google Maps or whatever it may be. And so we started to become more of a generator of ground truth data as opposed to the source, you know, where people come to get it. And so, you know, we trimmed back our MyDrive website. At one time, it seemed as if it was almost like a dumping ground for other assets that people wanted to have information upon. And our old director said, you know, this thing looks like a Christmas tree. We need to scale it back. So we kind of trimmed it down to the core information, like what are on our signs? Can they access cameras? Do they have color-coded speed maps? Just the very basic information that we know users want. but we've really taken a step towards setting up ourselves from an enterprise department perspective to be able to share data in a real-time way. So all those third parties that are, they're looking to access that data, like work zones, et cetera, can ingest it. So we've kind of moved away from, expecting folks to download our apps and go to our website, and just try to find ways to get that data to the high value kind of applications and the ways that people receive traveler information today.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Colin. On to Joey.
Thanks, Mike. And I'm going to be very transparent with Maryland here. I'm stating the obvious. The traditional HAR is well past its useful life, and we know that people are becoming more and more reliant on cell phone navigation apps, and we know the DMS usefulness is starting to fade as well. And widespread DMS deployment is likely very much stalled here in Maryland, to being over in the next few years. And we're going to be more strategic about where we install them and what is the most useful message. For example, travel time is more useful, 15 miles equals 60 minutes versus road work ahead, right lane closed. As we become more comfortable with artificial intelligence, and a lot of these systems can be tied to automatic triggers, especially as we've started already tying them to RWIS sensors. We started putting our RWIS sensors with certain DMSs in certain parts of the state to automatically trigger advisory messages up for road wet, road icy conditions, so that, we're taking the human factor out of the TMC right out of it. And I'll be quite honest with you about our 511 system. Our best strategy is to partner with private industry rather than compete with them. We've discussed really sunsetting Maryland 511 as we know it today. We were a late blossomer when it came to a 511 system. Again, Joey being very transparent and honest about our system as we know it. When we were in the booming days, we had 85,000 to 115,000 calls per month on our 511 system. I think we're down to 4,000 calls a month now. So we're moving forward with removing the IVR component of that and leveraging the resources to, be somewhere else more important. So, we've become a new partner in this Ways Connected Cities program. We're beginning to dive into all opportunities of that. And again, we weren't the first, but we won't be the last. So we want to encourage anyone that hasn't become a part of that to make sure that you are.
Yeah, real quick note before I move on to Sally. At Pennsylvania Turnpike, we actually just decommissioned our HARs a couple months ago. So, yeah, we've already started to see that happen. Moving on to Sal.
So, touching on what you said, Mike, we got rid of HARs when I started the DOT back in 2011. HARs were decommissioned. We only had a handful of them here and there. But, more information is becoming available in your car, right? So New Jersey DOT manages the state of New Jersey's 511 suite of services. We've got our phone system. We've got our website. We've got our personal traveler services. We've got over 40,000 people that sign up for individual alerts. We have RSS feeds that come out for various construction projects. We have cameras on the website and everything like that. We, as an alternative to what a lot of other folks are working on, we've taken a different approach, recognizing that more and more people are utilizing our service, but we want to make sure they utilize it hands-free through our partnership with Transcom and our partners in the private sector at InfoSense Global. We were able to connect our 511 system, and I think we're the first DOT in the country to do this, to Google Home and the Alexa voice assistant platforms, which includes the Echo Auto. So we have that ability to feed our 511 data out. Yes, we know we are not the end-all be-all of traveler information, but our website still is getting over 1.5 million hits per year. Our phone system is still getting close to 700,000 calls a year. We don't see the point at this time to scale that back. In the next couple of months, we're going to launch the functionality for the connection to Siri. We're not going to have platforms or apps or anything like that that are separate, but people in New Jersey rely on the system that we have. Are there going to be systems out there? Is there ways out there? Are there different kinds of platforms where you can get other traveler information? Yes. And we're going to integrate that into our systems. We're working with, getting through the Waze agreement. It's kind of difficult when your negotiating partner is the Google monster. But we will get more information to the public in any way we can. Signs, yeah, we've talked about decommissioning certain ones in certain locations, but when we've got major decision points, we're not there yet in terms of the full connectivity of cars in the road network. So we still need to have information blasted in front of, look, there are D drivers everywhere, right? We're all TIM practitioners. There are D drivers on every roadway in every state, and I got a lot of them. So I got to put a big blaring amber sign in front of them sometimes that says road closed ahead, use next exit, because unfortunately that's sometimes the only thing they're going to see.
Hey, Michael, this is Scott again. I apologize if I missed my question. I got a phone call from higher up in VDOT, of course. So
Okay. Yep. No, not yet, Scott. Yeah. Good timing. Good timing for the call. All right. We'll move on to the next question now. With the impacts that we're all going to see here with the FCC's notice of proposed rulemaking for the safety band, what impact will that have on your current connected vehicle programs, and what we have to do in the I guess in the near future, and then kind of the longer term? We'll go ahead and start with Colin on this one.
Yeah, so Michigan's been pretty out front about deploying connected infrastructure, kind of co-located when we do other type of modernization. So if we're going in and modernizing a signalizing intersection, we put in a DSRCR issue. We felt it was quite honestly incremental to the cost of the intersection. So we have a pretty decent amount of deployment out there to the tune of hundreds of roadside units. So we have to make a decision as a department if we intend to modernize those assets with the new CV2X technology, or if we really hit the pause button. And so I think we're quite honestly kind of in this holding pattern where we're not putting out any more assets until we know that the rule is proceeding forward as we believe it's going to. I think there's still some folks that are holding their breath as it relates to the change in administration, but we're not here necessarily. But I would just say what it does is it continues to create some grayness that exists, and so it has our executive leadership kind of hitting the pause button a little bit. And then I think there's technical questions that exist. There's lack of technical standards for the CV2X technology. It's very hard to get hardware in hand to be able to test with. There's still some concerns about when our vehicle's going to be out on the roadway to actually take advantage of any communication that we would put in. So I would say it's definitely had us put a pause on things, and I think there's now some technical decision making that we need to make in the near term, if the ruling proceeds forward. So yeah, huge impact.
Yeah, lots of decisions, I know, Colin, and especially for agencies like yourself that really were some of the early deployers. So yeah, best of luck with that transition there. We'll go ahead and move on to Joey.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and we definitely in Maryland were not as large of as a deployer as Colin has been in Michigan and Georgia, Utah, to name some of the other usual suspects that have been as large. But it will affect some of our deployed SPAD challenge infrastructure. We've been a little hesitant to engage in widespread deployments, and that isn't because we're afraid. We're just managing risk with our infrastructure for this very reason. So in this case, us being a little late into the game helped us in some ways. Then that time, Secretary Ron, now retired, was very hesitant in us deploying anything that was DSRC related. Wanted to make sure that we were not putting all of our eggs in one basket, but we did not wait to do some pilots. So there are some arterials along the I-95 corridor between Baltimore and Washington that we did focus on. That was kind of a test bed for us. Not only was it our 20-50-20 for the SPAD challenge, but allowed us to do some CAV deployments that are currently underway. We're doing some arterial management and some integrated corridor management deployments and some solutions. So yeah, right now it's going to impact us, but right now not largely, just because we had been a little behind in deployments. So that doesn't mean it's the vote we were hoping for, though. We wanted to go on record as saying.
Yeah, we're in a similar boat there too, Joe. We kind of dabbled in some DSRC deployments, but nothing, too widespread. On to Sal.
Yeah, so we're the waiters as well. We did not have a massive deployment. What we do have is a testing lab at the College of New Jersey that has actually worked out very well for us, because what we've done is we've brought in, Cisco, Econolite, Traffic Ware, and the SCATs, all the different controllers, and utilizing it with and without Cisco's edge computing capabilities. Because what we want to do is we then brought in the roadside units that we're using, the Danlaws, the Siemens, the CV to X ones, the Comsignias. We want to see what we can do as far as getting that SPAT message out. It's really been focused on the connectivity with the signals. We're lucky that all the work that we're doing, we've got dual mode capability. And so we can do both DSRC and the CV to X. So, kind of like, I guess what Joey said, we haven't jumped feet in on deployment. So we're really still in the lab. And so we can kind of adjust on the fly.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Sal. Scott, you with us?
Yep, I'm here. So we were kind of early bloomers, I guess, up in Nova in the Northern Virginia area. We really hopped on the SPAT challenge there pretty heavy, and we immediately put out 30 units or 30 intersections with DSRC, and we're up to 59 now. But, if this comes through, obviously it's going to make some changes. We're going to have to make some changes across the board. I know that we are currently working on deploying some additional, these, as you guys were talking about, we're getting ready to deploy 10 dual modes for the DSRC and the CV2X units. So that's coming out. But, I think we're supporting it probably more than some states, because we actually, I developed the Smarter Roads portal that all of this information is fed into and is now being fed out to the Audis and the, BMWs and the third party industries. So we are really trying to stay current so that we can support those guys. Down in Hampton Roads, I know in Virginia Beach, they're actually putting out units as we speak. So, Virginia's working to try to keep on top, but it will make a difference.
Can I just make one more comment? So
Absolutely.
It's very doom and gloom in Michigan, but I think there's a couple things I just want to mention. We have a different equation in Southeast Michigan because we have essentially the home of the auto industry. So all the OEM, R&D, and supplier communities in Southeast Michigan. So, our deployments have gone to great use toward talking about, some of these applications and being able to test them out from a functionality perspective. We've also built a lot of the foundational back-end systems to operate these things. So while the communication kind of mechanism will change, the functionality will not, and those relationships that we've grown will not either. So, yes, while it's frustrating that there's a shift in communication technology, there's still a ton of, success that we've had in the state, and we're excited to continue to move. So.
Yeah, it's a good point, Scott. So a lot of the work that you have done, it won't be lost. It won't be as, I'm sure it'll be complex, but you'll be able to pivot to the next technology should you have to. Yep. Thank you. Okay, next question. How are you using data analytics for traffic operations planning and real-time operations? We'll start with Joey.
Thanks, Mike. We're putting a lot of effort into decision support systems for our operators in our statewide operations center and our 3 traffic operations centers around the state of Maryland. It's a way to try and create some built-in knowledge transfer. We're also really trying to get to a place where we can predict incident duration and queue length A lot of our decisions for managing the roadway network, particularly signal timings, will be based on those items as we try to anticipate or maybe even eventually predict, thanks to origin, destination data, motorist behavior, things like that. The current work revolves around developing algorithms that will provide an event impact score, which will then trigger operator actions. Some work we've done with the University of Maryland Civil Engineering Department has shown that for durations, we can reach a 90 to 95% reliability metric on duration predictions. Those are some of the things that we're doing in traffic operations planning and operations there.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. Sal?
So for data, we're very fortunate. We are a member of the 16 agency coalition known as Transcom, and everybody comes to the tables with ideas. So annually we build a budget to talk about what it is that we want to build as our next toy, our next tool. What's the next thing that's going to help benefit our program? We have a tech and ops committee that brings the actual users in, the senior supervisors of those users, and say, this is something that I think we should investigate. One of the things that we have is we have a data analytics tool that takes in multiple data sets. So for New Jersey, we purchase INRIX's travel time data, but through the coalition, we also purchase the HERE travel time data set. And so what we do is it runs through that analytical tool, and it's able to tell us exactly how off of historical these actually are right now. We are starting to connect that to our current data entry platform, where we're now getting alerts for percentage of historical and what's off and what's actually better. A lot of the planning effort falls into our planning system. So I'm not going to touch too much on what they're doing as far as the data analytics, but for real-time operations, one of the other things we're going to do in the new Everyday Counts initiative for crowdsourcing, we're going to be working with Waycare to be able to get their TMC data platform for enhanced monitoring, to be able to get some of that additional data that we don't necessarily have in our singular agreement with any kind of one crowdsourced provider. We're going to put that into our TMCs. We're going to see how that works. Any way we can get more accurate, timely, accurate traveler information. That's our mantra, right? That's what the tenet of what we all do is timely and accurate. And they have to be together. It can be timely and it can be wrong, or it can be late and it can be perfect. You need both. And that's really the balance of what you get out of your data sets is it timely and is it accurate? And that's what we're going to do in our evaluation of the Waycare product.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Sal, because we actually just started discussions with Waycare, and yeah, I agree. It seems to be a very very direct way to get to many data sources and really kind of see which ones stick. Yep. So we'll move on to Scott.
Yeah, so we're fortunate. We've got we actually have some folks that are on board that are just an ace in this sort of thing. We use Ridis a lot for our historical data or for our data. Also IPIMS. But one of the advantages, and Sal, I can get back with you on the ATMS. I didn't see your question, but our ATMS, our new ATMS, gives us the ability to pull up historic data. So we're able to pull up some data there. As you guys mentioned, we use INRIX. But one of the things that we do, we use the data analytics for performance measurements and the development there, target setting for freeway operations. And one of the things, I'm sure you guys are involved in this too, but we have to do an ROI, return on investment analysis for a lot of our projects. And so we use the data analytics for that. It's really become ingrained in our major planning studies. Like right now, we're the I-81, I-95, and the upcoming I-64 corridor studies that we're doing. We're using it to identify and evaluate and prioritize recommendations on where we need to work with that. We also have a regional multimodal program, which was formed, strictly for ICM, developing an all-based decision support system tool to manage events, as we talked about earlier, events. But it's also included for upcoming studies. We're using it for the I-95 variable speed limit project. So we use data analytics a lot.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. Morning, Colin. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we're similar here in Michigan. I mean, we've had, statewide average speed data for over a decade that we've used for, speed maps, and we have travel times that are automated, on all of our DMS statewide. And one of the things from a traffic, operations perspective and planning is, I think, similar to what folks have described here. We have a tool in our congestion mobility unit. They're analyzing the most congested corridors, identifying, locations where, there are bottlenecks. And then, we're able to use that in kind of our prioritization of the types of operational projects that we implement, whether that be traditional infrastructure fixes being compared to kind of ITS type, deployments like active traffic management, et cetera. So I think we've been very data driven in our approach to identifying, how we're going to deploy technologies and what their benefits are. And then I think from a real-time operations perspective, we've had a lot of experience in kind of the travel time segments and things. But what we're starting to look at is more of the more granular segments, as well as more predictive, approaches to the travel times. And so being able to be more granular and more predictive in the way that we, deploy travel times, I think is one thing that we've been very heavy on over the last couple of years. So it's pretty exciting.
Thanks, Colin. Next question. How has your agency improved freight operations, and what plans do you have over the next 5 to 10 years, such as truck parking communications, vehicle restrictions during weather, et cetera? So I'll go ahead and start with Sal.
So I have a bit of a tickle, so I keep throwing myself on mute. So I got to keep popping back on to hit myself off of mute again. So look, New Jersey is a small state, but we're incredibly important in terms of East Coast logistics. For those that don't know, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey is actually the birthplace of the modern container ship. The first container ship came from New Jersey, the Port of New York, New Jersey, back in 1956. Over the course of the last couple of years, we've taken some significant steps to recognize the importance of those ports. We raised our partners at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey raised the Bayonne Bridge. The shipping channel has been dredged an additional, the harbor's been dredged an additional 50 feet. We got 18,000 TEU ships that are now coming through and in here. Our team's primary effort in terms of working with truck parking, we're a small state, but we're a through state. The Turnpike is a massive logistics corridor where if you go up and down in certain places, you'll see logistics and warehouses for miles. But a lot of our coordination is focused on commercial vehicle travel, especially during winter events. We found that commercial vehicles, the empties, the tandems, they're the ones that are primarily responsible for closing our roads during large winter storms. We've put in special efforts to ensure that commercial vehicles on our interstates recognize when they can and they cannot travel according to the state, the actual power that the DOT has and the state police have to be able to enforce it. But we also want to make sure that it's not always the stick, right? It's the carrot. And we talk to the motor trucking associations. We talk to on the federal side, letting them know about restrictions that we have. We've got Truck Pilot coming out soon at one of our rest areas for real-time truck parking information. But we don't have that many truck parking locations on DOT properties. Every rest area has got it. But if you go up and down the Turnpike, you'll see signs saying no parking on shoulders. We don't have a lot of real estate to do it. So it takes a lot more than a desire to get it done. It's a massive build out if we're looking for it. There's private facilities and people use those. They're sort of disconnected and they're not part of a regional network. I know INRIX has some products out there for parking. What we're looking at is something like what we've done with our traffic data and our traffic volumes and speeds information. I don't want to have to deploy equipment at every single truck parking facility, at every single truck parking lot or anything like that. I want something that gives me a wide scale, statewide approach from a probe data or some form of a data perspective that I don't have to go out and install and repair equipment every time, a truck plows into it.
Very good. Thanks, Sal. On to Scott.
Yeah, so VDOT, as Virginia, has actually been very involved, and this is kind of falling under me. Very, very involved with improving the freight operations throughout the to the state, and over the next 5-10 years, we're really obviously largely dependent on funding opportunities and impacts from the COVID, but we've got the truck parking management system pilot that we're working on right now. I'm trying to get that finalized for our New Kent eastbound welcome center on I-64. And basically, that's just to pilot a new technology that has been used in other states, but we've never seen how it works in Virginia. We've got six truck parking lots across the state that we already have infrastructure in, and we've been testing different types of technology there. So we're still trying to find the right one. As far as the I-81, we've got an I-81 corridor improvement program. It's called the Truck Parking Task Force, which I'm part of. And basically what we're doing is we're identifying the entire corridor, whole 325 miles of corridor, and we're trying to get a perspective on how we can coordinate with the owners of the independent shops, and the truck stops and so forth. It's I-81 in Virginia, 90% of the folks of the parking areas are owned privately. So VDOT only has an availability of being able to provide 10% to the CVO world, which so we really got to work out that public-private partnership, and we're working on that. We also have numerous improvement programs that we're working on in the near future. There's an I-81 corridor, widening from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, acceleration and deceleration lanes on extensions at certain interchanges. We're adding additional rest areas. We're looking at curve improvements. We've added truck climbing lanes along 81, which has really helped. Auxiliary lanes and shoulder widening. So we're really into this, and we're really trying to support the CVO world.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Colin?
Yeah, so I would say from our perspective, we're pretty mature when it comes to the truck parking conversation. We actually received a grant, a Tiger grant several years ago where 8 of the 10 MASTO states, which is Mid-American Association of State Transportation Officials. So you think Michigan over to kind of Minnesota, down to Kansas, across to Kentucky and up. We were able to deploy, real-time truck parking availability technology at I think about 150 locations throughout the region. And that's been pretty successful. Michigan, obviously Interstate 94 kind of connects Chicago, through to Toronto and the international borders there. And so we get a lot of kind of unsafe parking that happens in Southwest Michigan along 94 heading west into Chicago. And so that's kind of why we initially started to look at some of the truck parking availability systems. But yeah, I would say, we in particular have started to work as a MASTO region on kind of freight operations, across state boundaries. I think is one of the things that's really important that we've been trying to improve upon. So yes, we have technology deployed, but I think it's more about, coordination across state lines and ensuring that we have consistent approaches. So.
Yep. Good point, Colin. Thanks. Joey?
Thanks, Mike. I laughed when Sal said a small state, Maryland, 42nd in size, at 6th in density when you rank all the states together. I-81 goes through Maryland, but only for 12 miles. I-95, we stay very active in the I-95 corridor because of the Port of Baltimore. We're looking at super freighters that are coming in. We're getting larger and larger container ships. We're expanding our Howard Street train tunnel to get double stacked containers with United States DOT grant money to get more freight out there on the roadway. Truck parking is a very, very big problem in Maryland because we don't have a whole lot of it. So we've worked and continue to work, and we'll need to continue to work over the next 10 years to continue expanding that, because we do rely on a lot of mapping and an app truck parking application that we direct our truckers to and during emergencies and inclement weather such as snow. for them to find and get off of the roadways, find safe havens and safe parking and private areas and parking lots and shopping malls and Walmarts and things like that around the state, not just a couple of the rest areas on our toll roads and 2 or 3 rest areas along northbound I-95, because other than that, we don't have a whole lot of real estate at all on our roadway system for those trucks to park. And we page out through our traffic management centers, through the Maryland Motor Truck Association, that type of communication, and we stay active in dialogues with them so that we can get the messages out. But we do that through truck parking applications, and we point them to our website for that application.
Very good, Joey. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. We did plan for more questions for this session as backups, but I didn't think we'd get through all 8 of them. But with the remaining questions, I'm going to kind of put the panelists on the spot now and kind of pick what order you'd like to go in to close up. But, you know, is there anything you'd like to share in closing, or anything else from the other questions that you really kind of wanted to share with this group? So, you know, I'll go ahead and go in this order here, that because I know, Sal, you're good on your feet here. So I'll start with Mr. Cohen.
I guess one of the things, you know, we all work with industry, right? And so from the operations perspective, the industry is trying to understand what we need. New tools come out, new toys come out, analytics tools. You've got data coming in with analytical tools out of research institutions. You've got University of Maryland. You've got my partners up at NJIT, things like that. I'm wondering if there's value in, you know, and I'm going to touch on what Scott talked about. He's got his ATMS. Maybe a forum on what are the various entities across the country, or we could do it regionally to start. What are we doing in terms of our operations platform, and kind of line up, these are the common functionalities that we have. And this way, you know, R&D, like Joey said, see what kind of functionalities you guys have that others may want to use. We're all connected, right? I've got interstates that are going to go west, they're going to hit Colin. I've got interstates that are going to go south, they're going to hit Joey, they're going to hit Scott. I got ones that go west, hit you, Mike. Why shouldn't we have those same kind of interconnectivity by developing a matrix of the systems that we have? The motorists, they don't know that DOT doesn't manage the turnpike in New Jersey. You know, they just like they don't know that I don't run the George Washington Bridge. It's all one transportation system going from state to state. So maybe if we had a platform to understand what each of us are using and how we're using it, maybe that can better help moving things back and forth throughout our corridor.
Yeah, good points. Thank you, Sal. We'll go to move on to Scott.
Yeah, so you know, one of the reasons that I've enjoyed being in the operations side of this for, you know, 22 years now is because, you know, this is one opportunity within a DOT that you can actually try to stay up with the latest technology, you know, so it's always evolving. And to me, that's just, you know, that just energizes me. But, you know, but one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that, you know, there's a loyalty to the product, but then you have to be receptive to technology and how things change. And what I mean by that is that the 511, I know that Joey had brought up about them talking about sunsetting the 511 IVR. You know, VDOT's looking at the same thing at some time down the road, not right now. We've you know, we still have a large call volume every month, and especially during weather. You know, it just, you know, it's voluminous at that point. I mean, people really, really depend on it. So you got to find the right time to do things. You know, when you've been in the business a long time, when you start talking about sunsetting something that you developed. I developed the 511 system actually back in 2002. Well, the first one was traveler information for I-81, and then we went to 511 in 2004. So you know you've been around a long time when you're starting to talk about sunsetting part of those components. But I love being in this world.
Absolutely, never a dull moment, right? Okay, so Colin and Joey, you have about 30 to 45 seconds each. So go ahead, Colin.
And I'll be quick. So, you know, it's great to be innovative and deploy softwares and infrastructure out there. But what I would just caution everyone to is make sure that you effectively project your costs associated with modernization, and you have, you know, effective dollars to operate what you've deployed, because I think you're only as good as the people and the systems that operate what's out there. And so just make sure if you're involved in this, be a champion for getting the funds to allow for that to occur.
Great point.
I'll
Joey?
build off of Colin. It's all about knowledge transfer and succession planning. In operations, we need to continue growing our own. We need to take the education, we need to take the experience, and we need to blend them together. And we need to continue building on that to move this forward and to continue advancing into the future. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I definitely appreciate all the panelists. Always a pleasure to hear you talk and share your experiences, and appreciate everyone that attended this session. I hope you got out of this what I always do from listening to these gentlemen talk. So thanks again. I really appreciate your help with this, guys. Have a good evening.
All right. You take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Enjoy your day.